Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the AnandTech podcast. I'm your host Ian Cutress, and today we've got a podcast about the gaming industry. Now, we're recording this on New Year's Eve, so I want to talk about 2017 and 2018, and I've got the perfect guest for the podcast to talk to. Joining me is Chris Dring. Now, Chris and I have known each other for the best part of 20 years, since secondary school and high school.
Yeah.
Chris he's been writing about video games and the video game industry since,
10 years. 10 years.
10 years you've been officially employed, but it dates back to writing our own custom blogs.
Yeah.
And remember when we made our own game about Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Yeah, I do remember. Concooler.com. Greg's Revenge was the game that we made. An RPG Maker or something of that equivalent.
It was terrible.
It was amazing.
But you also ran a video game inspired wrestling blog as well.
Yeah, of course.
Back when we were teenagers. But Chris now you told me your job title is publisher for a company called gamesindustry.biz. This is a company that's part of the Gamer Network, which involves Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, EGX.
Yeah, runs the EGX events, VG 24/7.
But what does a publisher do?
A publisher is effectively, I was the editor, for a long time I was the editor of a magazine called MCV, which was a business-to-business publication, went out to all the video games companies in the UK. And then, and I was the editor of that. And then I joined Games Industry about a year ago as its senior editor. And I got promoted to publisher, which basically means I look over the editorial teams, the commercial teams, the event stuff that we do. I sort of involved in all of that. So it's effectively the boss of a media brand. That's the way to look at it.
So do you write anything anymore?
I do. That's one of the joys. The way the company's set up, it gives me this ability to not have to be too involved in commercial stuff where it gets a bit grey and a bit, you don't want a writer to be involved in advertising deals. So I do, but I also have a very big speciality in things like games publishing and games retail, which gives me a very unique voice at Games Industry. So yeah, I do writing, but I have the beautiful pleasure of writing whatever I want when I want, and I don't actually have to adhere to any deadlines or structure, which is I do a little bit, but so it's a bit of an odd publisher role. It's not a traditional publisher role, but it's
But I know over the past few years, you've poured over games sales numbers week in, week out. You've been to E3, you've published specialist magazines for events like E3. You go around to the major and especially in the UK third-party developers, interviewing a lot of senior people there. And you've put your name to a number of nicely high-profile magazines in the industry of the past. So it's great to have you on, and I've known you for ages and played on your GameCube more times than I can count.
And Dreamcast before my mum threw it down the stairs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm actually looking at, well, you said you've replaced your Dreamcast now, but it's all set up here. But having you on board and it being New Year's Eve, I thought it'd be a great time to talk to the AnandTech audience about the gaming industry, both what we've just had in the year past and what we're looking forward into 2018. So obviously my background is hardware and your background is essentially gaming and software. Yeah. So we're going to know a lot of different things and have different viewpoints on this. We've literally just spent the last hour talking about potential hardware relating to how games are played for different markets.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something that's publishable, but it's nice to get a chance to talk about this with somebody from a very different perspective. So that's what I want to give to you guys listening to the podcast today. So 2017, I don't think we can mention anything about 2017 without talking about PUBG.
Yeah, that's the game of the year. That's the biggest game of the year, I'd say.
So this is PlayerUnknown's Battleground, where you have a bunch of people dropped onto an island and it's final survivor wins. Why is this game so big? Why is this game so popular?
I wish I knew. Everyone saw. Well, it's the Battle Royale mode. It's become this. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's interesting. Lots of people have different perspectives on it. I was talking to Microsoft, who obviously did a console exclusivity agreement with Bluehole and the team behind the game, and they think it's because it's a bit more of a social experience. I think it's one of those. It's a good game for starters. People have fun with it, and I think people just like hanging out in a. You've got that hangout game. There's always one, whether it was Destiny several years ago or Overwatch or whatever it is. And I just think it's one of those games that's just captured people. They like hanging out with their mates. sitting on Steam, and you know, and the stories they create. These games, I'm not a big player of it. I just don't have the time. But the stories that they create when they you know, mostly a failure and embarrassment and humiliation, and not being able to jump over the fence, or you know, not being able to getting in and out of the car every 30 seconds. You know, they're beautiful stories, and I think games that create their own stories seem to be the ones that are really resonating at the moment, I think.
The most I always see about PUBG is the friends that I know who play it. Whenever they get, you know, a winner chicken dinner, they win a round. That's what they post to the social media. Yeah. And so everybody's seeing, you know, social media wins. You don't, because it's one winner in however many play in a map, rather than, you know, a team-based game like Battlefield or Call of Duty, makes it different. I mean, it's not necessarily...
You can be a team, but
at some point you're going to have to backstab your team or front stab your team. It's not necessarily something that's going to grow in esports, but it just got this community around it. Yeah. I mean, my recent perspective has been relating to how many people now play it on Steam, and as far as we know, it's a bunch of Chinese bots trying to monetize. And they just announced that they banned 1.5 million accounts for.
Yeah, well, but then you look at those numbers. Those, you know, this is a game that's in early access that costs money. You know, it's not like Fortnite or, you know, this game costs money. People are spending money on this. And it's now not in early access. Yeah, it's now a live game, but people are spending money on it, and these are sort of numbers that you see. You know, the way it went. You know, they're almost adding 1 million a week at one point. They weren't, but you know, when it was getting to that sort of scale, you know, this is the sort of thing you expect from a free to play game, and you're getting it from a game that's costing people $30 a piece. I just think it's been a phenomenal success. It's one of the standout things of the year, without question. And but I think it also talks to, you know, talk about Microsoft, who signed this as a console exclusive. Look at all their games coming up. They've really gone away from story-based games, or at least traditional story-based games where you have a characters and your beginning, middle, ends. They're sort of moving into games where players sort of get sandbox sort of experience games where people create their own stories. And you look at their lineup for next year with games like State of Decay, they've just signed PlayerUnknown, that's only just come out, Sea of Thieves, even Crackdown to a certain degree. They've almost gone into this, they're going to very social, connected games, and those are the ones you never really know where they're going to come from, where those hits are going to come from, but they seem to be what everyone's chasing.
It's funny you say that, because just before we started recording, we started talking about one of the games. I mean, I used to play quite a lot on the Dreamcast, Phantasy Star Online. You know, this is one of the first online console games that it had absolutely zero story whatsoever.
Yeah.
But you played in a team with mates. I mean, it wasn't an adversarial type combat.
No.
But, you know, I loved it, and I'd still play it.
No, but it creates those things, aren't they? And everyone then sits down and starts saying, "Hey, do you remember when this happened? This amazing thing happened." I mean, but it happens. It can happen in any game, and it's just which one captures the public's imagination. I've been playing a lot of. I'm a big Rare fan. I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, and I played a game recently where Sea of Thieves has all these great mechanics in it, but there's been Sea of Thieves. You basically go out and find treasure. You and a crew, you get on a ship and you go off and find treasure. And one of the treasure chests you can get is a cursed chest, right? And the cursed chest is a chest that cries. And it's got a lot of gold in it, but when you take it back to your ship, it cries and it floods your ship. So you have to start bailing it out, right? And then you basically have to keep an eye on the cursed ship. Anyway, we'll fight. We end up getting, we wanted to get the cursed chest back to base before we got into any sea fights, but we got into one. We got into a ship battle, and we were losing badly. And before I died, I fired myself out of a cannon onto the enemy ship holding the cursed chest. I didn't get seen for a few seconds, so I ran to the bottom of their ship and I dropped the cursed chest. And then I got shot to pieces and dead. I ended up in the dead zone. You come out of it after a while. I came back out of it after a while, and our ship was in disarray. We were in a lot of trouble. And then all of a sudden, our enemy ship sank. And they thought, we didn't do any damage to it. We were doing really badly. And then one of the other guys in the ship told other people, said, there was a cursed chest in our ship, and it flooded our ship, and it sank. Now, the game they didn't intend for that to happen, but it became a wonderful story. You know, was afterwards, I've told that story so many times. And it was because I'm so proud of that moment in a game. But I feel when it comes to big hit games like PUBG at the moment, those are the ones that seem to be hitting these ridiculous numbers. That doesn't mean there's no space for the other games, but they seem to be the ones that everyone's going for.
So, aside from PUBG, have there been gems this year that you think have outperformed?
Well, I think the thing that surprised everybody is Nintendo. from a pure game. I actually, if I can get this up, there are some statistics that came out of. These are the estimations the analysts came out with. So IHS, who are a very well-respected analyst company, estimated the Switch would sell 4.4 million consoles by the end of this year. It did that by before June. Super Data was a little bit more optimistic. They said there'd be 5 million by the time the end of the year. Nintendo hit that number in July. They're now currently on about 12 million consoles sold globally. Even Nintendo didn't expect that. They've had to fly in. It's a lot more expensive to fly in stock than it is to ship it, for obvious reasons. Yeah. They've had to fly in stock to meet the demand.
I noticed there weren't that many sales on the Switch around Christmas because they're selling as many as they can make.
Well, actually, they're doing okay in the West. So they've got to the point now in Europe and the US where they now actually have put a lot of stock in the market. They've kind of held it back for a little bit and then just flooded the market. In Japan, it's a different story where you've got if you've ever seen the film Jingle All the Way, it's like that at the moment where people are fighting over each other to get hold of one of these consoles.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. So it has sold out. It had sold out for a long time. It's now more in free supply, but there's a lot of stock out there. Nintendo are really trying. That's been the surprise, and it's been. And I think I was so surprised. I remember it was in January. Nintendo did a big event at Hammersmith Apollo in London, and they invited all the journalists down to play it. They'd only announced it that morning, might I add. They did a video that morning. Nintendo own UK team didn't know when the release date was. That's how secretive they kept it. Their own to the point where they were there. They found out it was coming out in the beginning of March. It's coming out in 5 weeks. They looked horrified, right?
They have to sort out the campaigns. Yeah.
So I went to this Nintendo thing, and I was sitting there with a load of retailers in the line. I was sitting there with Game. I was sitting there with Sainsbury's. It wasn't just media. It was everyone was coming in to play these games. And they were looking there and saying, I don't get it. There's no games on it. Everyone thought the only game Nintendo seemed to have on it at launch is this Zelda game, which don't be wrong, everyone looked amazing, but it's already out on the Wii. It was going to come out on the Wii U at the same time, and they were like, well, this isn't going to do well. Nintendo's line was that we're drip feeding out the games over the years, so people keep having a game to talk about. I'm like, yeah, but you've got a launch with no games on it. I don't understand. A machine the £280 price for it seemed relatively reasonable, but the hardware, the accessories were like £70. The games were £60. It's really expensive, and I think there's loads of question marks. And I came out of that, as a Nintendo fan that I am, I came out of that thing, sat down to the pub, and I think, Nintendo have fluffed this. They've got it wrong. And I wasn't the only one to think it. Lots of us were feeling they made a mistake. And then we were all proven wrong. I'm happy to say I was proven wrong. Zelda, and it turned out Nintendo was spot on. They released Zelda. It turned out to be enough to sell all the machines they had, easily enough. It was such a huge hit. And then they had Mario Kart in July. So as soon as they had more stock in, everyone was talking about Mario Kart, and they had ARMS and Splatoon, and now Mario Odyssey.
Well, I remember you saying to me a little while ago that one of the downfalls of necessarily the GameCube was that all the major games came out in the first year.
Yes. Well, yes, that's a problem. I'm optimistic, but also concerned by it, because at the moment Nintendo have very little announced for next year. So they've announced a Pokemon game, which it might be coming out in 2018. They've not committed to it. They've said we're hoping to get it out at the end of next year.
Yep.
They've announced Fire Emblem, which is big in Japan, and it's got a cult following.
I've played it.
But it's Bayonetta 1 and 2. They're re-releasing those in February. These aren't Mario, Zelda, Mario Kart, Splatoon level games. Pokemon is, but the rest aren't. And so I sit there and think I'm a little bit concerned about that, because, as I say, the GameCube had an amazing first year, and then it kind of faded away. There's a slight difference, because Nintendo as a software company, for years they had two pieces of hardware. They had a handheld world and they had a console world. And the console games and the handheld games, Mario and Zelda do well on both. They always did.
Yep.
But on the home console, the games that tend to do really well were Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. Those tend to be the big ones. And in the handheld world, it was Animal Crossing and Pokemon.
Yep.
Right. Now with Switch, because it combines both, you kind of feel like they actually do have a couple of other tricks up their sleeve. They still have. There's no Smash Brothers yet. There's no Animal Crossing yet. There's no Pokemon. They do still have some big games to come. They are only working on one machine at the moment, so they should be able to turn around games a bit faster.
Yeah.
Third parties are starting to get intrigued by it now, because once you get to that 10 million sales figure, third parties tend to start coming on board.
Especially when there's no real competition in the game space.
Yeah, and indies have benefited massively from that. I am optimistic, and Nintendo have a habit of not announcing stuff. They have a habit. They do these things called directs now. So whereas whereas PlayStation and Xbox sort of save their big announcements for E3 or Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show to a lesser extent, but mainly E3. Nintendo do these things called Directs. They do about 4 of them a year. They do some smaller ones dedicated to individual games. They tend to do it, and they tend to announce a load of games. Nintendo have one in January. Yeah. So there is an expectation that we'll see some big games. Well, we're kind of feel they might need to do that. Yeah. Because at the moment the release schedule is a bit light, unless you're interested in Yoshi, and which I think looks great, but I don't think it's going to sell loads of Switches. So it'll be interesting. That's how Nintendo do things. So we'll get into. The only reason we know there's a Direct in January is because EA leaked marketing document came out where one of their games called Fee is being shown during a Nintendo Direct in January. It's the only reason we know that.
So these Nintendo Direct events, they're closed. Or they press
they're online YouTube videos, and they've completely done away. They're one of the first companies to say we don't need the press, and they do a Direct at E3. They always do one there as well. It's not like it's all.
So you are sat down in front of a presentation?
No, they do it at E3, but they do it online. So I watch the E3. I'm in LA, right? in my hotel in Los Angeles, sitting there watching YouTube with the rest of the world, right? And also, when you're at events like I went to all the press conferences this year, Bethesda, Xbox, PlayStation, went to all of them, and I would have got more work done and be able to be more engaged with people commenting if I wasn't in the room. It's great to be in the room. It's great to get the buzz, and it's always lovely to see, but. And I always like to be there, but you don't have to queue up. You don't rush into the next press conference. You're not. That's Nintendo do it that way. Nintendo have done it that way for a long time. I went to their final E3 press conference, which is when they announced the Wii U, and they've not really made the mistake. They're not really. That was a bit of a disappointment.
It's also expensive to do it.
I think Nintendo can probably afford it, but yeah,
just prints money.
But they can mess around with it. Nintendo have always been a bit irreverent. One year at E3 they did a Nintendo Direct where they got the creators of the Muppets to basically create Muppet versions of all the Nintendo executives to appear, and they just did it in like an animated style. We've had Robot Chicken guys sort of take part, do one of their videos as well. They normally do something. They normally do that around E3. The other ones tend to be more. Here's a developer talking about a game, and here's some video footage. But that's how people do things these days, isn't it? That's how we consume media.
It's. I mean, you talk about selling 12 million Switches. I'm always amazed that the hardware. Nintendo has always had we don't need to push the boundaries of hardware the same that Sony and Microsoft do. And the Switch, it's using NVIDIA Tegra. It's actually using a very a crippled version of NVIDIA Tegra. It's still more powerful than a smartphone. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's what, a 7.5-inch screen or something, and it's being used differently to a mobile device. And I was literally just showing Chris the Razer phone, which is a phone made for gamers that costs twice the price of the Switch. Yeah. But the games I play on that are very different to the games I play on a console. Mm-hmm. Like the Switch. So you've got analysts saying we predict 4.5, 5 million, and then it sells 12. Is it going to sell 12 next year? If you're saying if you're saying the games are they haven't announced.
Yeah, I mean they have a Bennett. So there's two things there. I mean I think Switches. I think we don't talk about this a lot. Nintendo are seen as a family friendly casual games company. I think most people that have bought Switch this year are core gamers. I think people have bought this. They've got a PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or a PC, and they're going, I'd love to be able to play these like Zelda's a 150-hour fantasy epic. I'd love to be able to play that on the go, right? And I think that's appealing to those sort of people. The machine's quite expensive. I don't think it has that family audience. It has family great games for that audience, but I don't think it's appealing there. So they've got room to go in terms of price and everything like that. I actually think they benefit from the failure of the Wii U. Nobody bought a Wii U. Well, Switch and I'd say by the time we get to March, Switch would have sold more consoles than the Wii U did in its entire 5-year existence. And it's already on the cusp of doing that. Wii U sold 13 million. 13.5 million over the course of its life cycle. I mean, that's dreadful. And that's a flop by any standards.
It hit the magical 10 million though.
Yeah, after 4 years. It was selling slower than the Dreamcast, right? It's, it was a disaster of a machine. But Nintendo made eventually. It took them a while to get to it, but Nintendo made a lot of good games on that console. But nobody bought them. And one of the big hits, one of the real big hits on the Switch this year has been Mario Kart 8. It's brilliant. It's amazing. It came out on the Wii U 2 years ago. But people aren't thinking about. Nobody bought the Wii U. Nobody's getting. So there's actually a string of Wii U games that are high quality, excellent, that nobody played or nobody bought. And if Nintendo need to plug a gap in their lineup, they need another Mario, need another Zelda. They've got plenty sitting on the Wii U. Games, They can just go, here we are, reworked, maybe with a few extra modes or a few extra bits and bobs. Smash Brothers on the Wii U is fantastic. They also released a version of the 3DS with different levels. They could quite easily combine those. I think quite easily, but it wouldn't take a massive amount of development effort to combine those and just re-release it on the Switch, and they would instantly have a hit.
Another cycle of sales. Yeah. So Switch, 12 million. We say that's more than what was predicted. Sony and Microsoft, 60 million, 30 million or something around that.
Yeah, well, Microsoft don't announce hardware sales numbers anymore. For they say because live numbers are more important in terms of audience, but which is true. But also, people want to know how many consoles they've sold, and they haven't sold a lot.
Because the live numbers count everybody who's got an Xbox 360, Xbox One.
It's important in terms of engagement. It's important. If you can have one customer that keeps coming back over and over again, it's better than having 100 customers that bought it once and then didn't buy anything again.
Yeah.
But
It's the mobile game mentality. It's the individuals that spend $5,000 rather than the ones that spend nothing.
Yeah. But generally, it's the Switch is just getting started. PlayStation's still the dominant year. PlayStation's dominant right now. It had actually, even with the Switch, it was the biggest console this year by a long way. It's.
Is that because of titles, or is that because of something like PSVR, or
no? Microsoft messed up obviously at launch with their messaging. People were angry with them over, I think, actually quite some interesting ideas they had around online and how it would work. But people were angry about the idea they couldn't trade in their games. All the idea of digital ownership.
I remember that. Yeah.
It put them on the back foot right from the word go. They had a slightly more expensive machine. PlayStation 4 games you couldn't tell, but technically were marginally superior to the Xbox One ones. So you had Xbox One's a more expensive machine that fans were already questioning Microsoft over. Yeah. So PlayStation got the momentum. It was also a rare situation. It doesn't happen very often where two consoles came out at the same time. It didn't happen in the previous generation. 360 followed by Wii, folled by PS3. This generation we had two come out pretty much within weeks of each other. And when one wins, what happens is everyone's got PS4. Yeah. So their friends buy PS4 and their friends of friends buy PS4. And then it creates this almost critical mass, and it can be really, you have seen it happen, but it can be really hard to fight that, particularly when your machines are too similar. The Saturn died when when they went head to head with the PlayStation, and we're kind of, that's the last time it happened, by the way, 1995, and I think that's pretty much what's happened here now.
Well, I mean, you say the hardware the same. It's both AMD custom designed with the same number of cores, slightly different amounts of memory and graphics. But as you say, on screenshots, you could tell the difference necessarily during gameplay. I mean, but since then, we've got PS4 Pro, we've got Xbox One X as Scorpio, which Microsoft went into detail, during when I was at the Hot Chips conference in August. They all moved to x86, so now there's more compatibility with PC.
Well, Microsoft have put themselves in a position where now they technically have the superior machine, and again, not many people will notice that, but I don't think that was the only reason PlayStation dominated, have dominated, because they had the slightly superior machine. Xbox now does have one. I think they'll be telling people next year of all the big games that launch, whether that's Far Cry 5 or whatever, they'll be saying, we've got the best looking version of the game.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's going to be, who doesn't have a PlayStation or Xbox at the moment? Well, family audiences. And they'll be driven by things that aren't about, they won't care too much if that game looks slightly better on that machine than the other. They
want a Blu-ray player. They want Netflix.
They're not getting hung up over the fact the visuals might be, if you squint, it looks a little better. But so what Microsoft Xbox One X is really trying to appeal to is existing PS4 owners, and I'm not entirely sure there's a challenge for them. They've got some big games coming out. I do think though Microsoft might be closer to announcing a full successor to Xbox One.
Well, you say they're trying to entice owners with PS4 owners, but ultimately when new consoles are launched, I mean, when it's a whole new generation, the idea is that everybody upgrades. I mean, in the past it was because nothing was backwards compatible. And there were new titles, and you could only get the latest titles on the latest hardware. This being a mid-season,
it's different. It's different. Yeah, we've not seen anything like this before, really. I mean, we've seen slimmer hardware, slightly improved technology, yeah, but we've not seen before a situation where the game. But I think also you're going to see a link to 4K TV adoption. I think when people get more 4K TVs, they might be thinking, "I'd like a 4K device," and the best one to get probably is the Xbox One X.
Yep.
So I think all that stuff might help it, but you're not looking at a giant shift in momentum from PlayStation to Xbox. I mean, the PlayStation's momentum's, if anything's, got bigger since Xbox One. Xbox, it's games. And Xbox One X has been a great launch for Xbox, but Microsoft, for the first 9 months of this year, released sod all. They released Halo Wars 2. That was their only game they released.
Only first-party game. Yeah,
only first-party game they released. Whereas PlayStation did things like Horizon, they had things like Crash Bandicoot, which did really, really well for them. Resident Evil 7, which I know was a multi-platform, but it had the PlayStation VR stuff exclusive. Yep. All of that stuff they had during the first...
So is it just a case of also third-party developer support?
I think because the machines are quite similar, you've established they're built quite similar. Most third-party developers are releasing games on both, right? So you're not. But okay. what Sony are doing is doing really aggressive with third-party deals. So Microsoft famously did it a lot during the 360 era,
yep.
where they signed, they had the Call of Duty relationship. Now PlayStation has the Call of Duty relationship.
Yep.
So when all the Call of Duty is being advertised, they're advertising the PS4 version. That doesn't have any influence upon most gamers, but it has an influence perhaps in terms of putting the PlayStation brand out there a bit. The big games that Microsoft had this Christmas, third-party relationships, was Assassin's Creed Origins and Mordor. And Mordor was one of the disappointing game launches of the year. You can't help but feel, and also Microsoft closed a lot of studios, things like Lionhead closing.
I know that has a personal.
Yeah, well, I love Lionhead. They've focused on games like they've focused on Halo. They've focused on Gears of War. Just as PlayStation have gone into new IP and done loads of new stuff. I think Microsoft is the noises coming out of Microsoft now actually is they're changing that strategy. They're going now into investing more into first party development, which I think is fantastic. And I'm really excited to see. It's really great to see a big company spending money on big quality games. And I'm sure we'll see more of it. As I say, the beginning of next year, they've got some big games coming out. They've got a lot of ground to make up. And I can't help but feel we're 4 years into the cycle that Microsoft might be readying themselves for the next generation to see if they can turn the tide on PlayStation like they did. They did it before, like they did in the PS2 to PS3 generation.
You mean a next full generation, not a mid-season update? Yeah, I doubt they would release anything in 2018 because of Xbox One X coming out so soon. Yeah. But you to 2019, 2020?
I think we are getting to that point, particularly if you are a machine... PlayStation... If I was Sony, I'd be... PlayStation 4's doing so well. Next year, I think we've already hit... I think this is the peak of the console generation. I think next year will be a decline for both platforms. But Xbox has been declining for a while. Microsoft might get to I think Microsoft gets to the point where they'll want to put out a new piece of hardware before PlayStation do. Mm. I would be surprised if they both do it at the same time this time. But
I think Microsoft might learn that lesson.
Yeah, it's a big risk, Yeah. You've got, PlayStation, interestingly, PlayStation have a bit of markets outside of... It's interesting, you look at the 360 generation, the Xbox 360 launched in 2005, and then the PlayStation launched 2006, 2007, depending on what part of the world you're in. And the PlayStation 3, actually, by the end of the generation, they sold neck and neck, because PlayStation 3 is very big in European countries and certain other markets where Xbox isn't. But in what I've often heard described as the Anglo-Saxon markets, Australia, America, and the UK, it's always been, they're in Xbox strongholds. But even this generation, that's not been the case. And
Sony always has Japan.
Sony, now it seems to be Nintendo at the moment, because Japan seems to be moving away from home consoles quite a lot. They've
into what?
Portable world. So the 3DS is still huge in Japan, and obviously mobiles as well, and Switch. They because of the nature of that country, they love their portable devices, and home console sales do seem to be slowing a bit. But generally speaking, home console wise, PlayStation.
Talking about next generation updates. We've spoken about the hardware on the current generation. We've got this mesh of x86 now with PC when you're talking about Sony and Microsoft, and then Nintendo using Tegra. Just before we start recording podcast, we kind of talking about next generation. What's it going to be? Both Sony and Microsoft have very deep relationships with AMD's semi-custom SoC division. Both Sony and Microsoft are currently using Jaguar cores, and with AMD graphics, and Xbox One X uses Polaris, I think. graphics. So, and AMD just released, their next gen Zen cores, the Ryzen products, the Vega graphics is currently shipping in Ryzen Mobile at 15 watts. Console runs at 150 watts, and that's meant to be kind of a nice, efficiency point. So if they were going to start dealing with, say, for example, we were going for a first half of 2019 launch, the hardware would have to would essentially be just being put in place depending on roadmaps. I could mention that AMD and Global Foundries, they've got, is it their new 12 nanometer process that is potentially using for the Ryzen Plus chips that we might find out about next week at CES. But ultimately, those sorts of consoles, they're aiming to hit 4K and VR gaming. They have to, otherwise, what else would they offer that they don't currently?
Yeah, I have that same. But then I obviously look at the role of a console as being a mainstream way into gaming, right? So PCs are great now. I mean, they do everything. And if you are into Steam's incredible, and if you are a gamer who are really into that kind of market, really into high-end games, you get a PC, right? And it lasts forever, and it doesn't last forever, but it lasts a lot longer. A console is for people that want really high-end gaming experiences, but really just want to stick it under their TV and plug it in as easy as possible. There's a massive market for that, which we've seen with the PS4. But there comes a point where, consoles are really not as convenient as they should be. And I do get to the point where PS4, PS5 and Xbox 2, whatever it will be, is just what they have now, but souped up a bit more. Well, what are you offering people? And 4K and VR seem to be the obvious places.
What about streaming?
Well, we're not there yet.
Not with consoles, anyway. Could they do something that integrates streaming to be easier for console gaming?
I think if streaming can get it working in the way that it does in music and movies and those sort of things. You're talking about, video game, playing video games. You don't need a console. You just need the internet, right? It's.
Well, no. I mean, actually creating content rather.
Oh, right. You mean?
currently, if you want to do that, you have your console and a PC and use a pass-through cable.
Well, yeah, you say that. You don't need to do that. I mean, PlayStation has a button on the PS4 controller called Share. Right, which is entirely designed. They do limit it. They do control it a little bit more than I think they need to.
And it goes through their own system.
Xbox it's bought Mixer and all this kind of stuff, but all of this is capable via the machines they got now.
Yeah.
I just, you look at how success Nintendo's had. Nintendo's capturing the imagination with Switch by being, hey, this is the most flexible gaming device you have. I found my love for games again because of Switch. I've always loved games, but I don't have much time for them. Because the Switch, I can take it to bed, I can take it into the kitchen when I make a cup of tea, I can take it on the bus with me, I can do whatever I like, I can play whenever I like, whenever I can fit it in. It's been a remarkable product for me and it's captured the imagination. PlayStation, Xbox, it's great machines, but there were also great machines in the last generation. I have to ask, what role do they have in a world where the PC is doing such an amazing thing and in the low-end space, what's the console? The thing is, people are buying them. So, I can ask these questions and they answer them emphatically with the 30 million install bases. Yeah. But I do think there's a lot of people asking questions. If you're going to do a PS5, there will be a lot of people going, what is it? What does it do that I can't get now? And maybe it's a super VR machine. Maybe it is that if you've got a 4K TV, this is the product you need.
It's all about the experience and the user experience. I mean, it's been that way in the PC space for ages. I mean, what's the point of the newest generation if it does exactly the same? Intel had a very famously failed advertising campaign called PC Does What? And it was basically a series of adverts showing, oh, well, you have these 360 laptops that can act as tablets, and they're kind of flopped. Yeah, well, and what's driving a lot of laptop sales now? Gaming.
I think, I don't know, but then again, this is the games industry. It changes on a dime, right? As I say, 12 months ago, we'd all written them switch off, and now it's so right now, I don't think VR is doing what people think it should be doing. Developers seem to be moving away from making VR games and making VR applications instead. as they kind of see it. Perhaps that's where the money is rather than in gaming.
Well, VR doesn't have as much of an install base as I think people would want for those AAA titles.
No, and the investment that's giant. In the moment, a lot of those developers have been they're living off investment, and some investors understand this is a long game, and some investors don't. So you've got a load of investors going, "Where's my return?" And it was like, "Yeah, you're not going to get a big return on this tiny install base," and so they're going to start running away. You're going to start seeing some VR developers consolidate. You're going to see some closures. That doesn't mean VR's dead or in trouble. I think we're going to have a couple of years of realism before we get to before. That's the thing with the game. It's the thing with any technology, right? We always overestimate it in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And I think that's just what we're going to see with VR.
VR and it's 2-3 million installer base, versus a Call of Duty that'll sell 50 million units. It's you won't make a Call of Duty for VR unless you can get close to those numbers.
Yeah,
and that's from VR has. I want to switch it up. I know we've talked a little bit about the future, but 2018, there are some nice, impressive games coming out. I know you were saying to me that earlier that 2018 isn't necessarily going to... 2017 was such a good year for games and game launches that 2018 would have to do something spectacular to beat it.
Yeah, something like a Rockstar game. That'll probably help.
Such as?
So Red Dead Redemption 2, I think, it's out in spring, which probably means May, knowing Rockstar's calendar. It's not out. It's going to be the biggest game of the year. I say that with some level of confidence. Their last game Rockstar released, obviously, was Grand Theft Auto 5. Which is 86 million sold globally. It's still in the top 10 charts now. It came out in 2013. It's
a lot of development work went into that though.
Well, and Take-Two's financials. Take-Two last year released Soddle, right? They released a WWE game and an NBA game, and yet their financials were fantastic because of a certain Grand Theft Auto Online. And that is Grand Theft Auto is massive. But the reason why I said it, Grand Theft Auto did 86 million GTA 5s on. GTA 4 did 30 million, which was groundbreaking then, right? And
if you developed a game and somebody offered you 30 million sales, you'd bite their hand.
Yeah, amazing! It was incredible. And then GTA, Red Dead Redemption came out a year after GTA 4, and that did 15 million, which was also massive.
Yep.
Obviously half the numbers of GTA 4, but then it's not a Grand Theft Auto game. So Red Dead Redemption 2, the first game from Rockstar since GTA 5. Even if it does half again, you're looking at 43 million. I don't know. This isn't an estimate, but I think everyone's looking at this as being a ginormous release, and it's one that they expect.
It's going to be multi-platform.
Yeah, it's PlayStation have a slight relationship with Rockstar on it, but it's on Xbox, it's on PC. You're going to have, so that's going to be huge. I think any game developer will be running away from that 100 miles away. Still got Far Cry 5 in March. There's Monster Hunter World in January. Nintendo will have a Pokemon game. I mentioned that earlier at the end of the year. Square Enix, who have a deal with Marvel. We should start seeing the early signs of their games as well. PlayStation have a few big ones. They've got Spider-Man, and then you've got Microsoft mentioned a few of their games as well. Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, Crackdown. So there will be some big games next year. I don't know if we're going to see quite the heady heights of the 10 out of 10s, the sheer number of amazing games we've got this year. But, 2017, depending on when you're listening. I'm assuming not in the next 30 minutes, but but Red Dead Redemption's the landmark title. There's a lot of expectation riding on it.
What's the game that you're most likely, what's the one that you're going to go out and buy pre-launch?
So I'm a big fan of Rare. I mentioned this earlier. So Sea of Thieves, and I've played that a lot. Is a game I'm really intrigued by. I've not really gone into these great big shared world experiences before, but it has that level of humour and style that really appealed to me. I've been a fan of Switch all year, I mentioned that, so I'm looking forward to Fire Emblem and Pokemon, but really I've kind of had my favourite Switch games in Zelda and Mario. I'm intrigued to see what they announce for the rest of the year, but for me, I'm really intrigued by Sea of Thieves. That's the AAA game I'm excited about.
For me, it's going to be... Now, I know it's already been out on consoles, but Final Fantasy 15 is coming to PC. Mm-hmm. I was at the Distant Worlds orchestral concert in Royal Albert Hall a few weeks ago.
Nice.
I booked my ticket with tickets went online. 20 minutes later, there were 3% left. I booked my ticket. That's it, randomly anywhere, put me second row.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that was a nice sort of birthday present that cost £70.
Not to do top trumps on this. I'm a big fan of Zelda. I've been to the Zelda concert a few times, and I paid to go to the one in Birmingham last March, and I went there and I said, I met the guy. I was introduced to the guy, somebody who knew each other, who runs it, Jason Michael Paul, and I said, he goes, well, you're going to come to the one we're doing in November? And I went, I might do if I, he says, just drop me a line and I'll give you free tickets. Drop me a line. Not only give me free tickets, I went backstage and met the... but it was
son of a...
Yeah, I know. But that was amazing. That was incredible. Carry on.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, Final Fantasy 15, they've already got, one expansion out on... Or they've got another one coming out soon, and then hopefully it all comes out on PC end of January, I think. I've already told my boss Ryan that I might need to take a week off.
Yeah.
Now, so one of the downsides of us moving from ages 12 to 15 to now the fact that we're in our early 30s is that suddenly work becomes more work and family become more important than gaming. So you have to be very choosy when you pick the games that you're going to play. Essentially that year, you get one or two major titles, if that. Yeah. Ryan knows this. So Final Fantasy 15 is going to be on. And you say, Monster Hunter, I remember playing, an old PlayStation, but I can't remember what version of Monster Hunter it was, hundreds and hundreds of hours. It amazes me if we went back to how we played consoles and games then, if they actually track the number of hours like Steam does now. I'd have to think. Well, no,
the Switch does. So I say the Switch, because it's flexibility, I played on loads. I've played Zelda for 155 hours. Completed it. I've done the DLC as well. And I adore it. I just like to think, when was the last time I played a game for 155 hours? And I'm trying to think, Pokemon Yellow? It's like, I can't think to the last time I played a game for that amount of time. Mario Odyssey, I did 65 hours on that. But that's the reason why that's such a rare thing. Somebody of my age, gaming lengths at that time, no way. Whenever I used to read Final Fantasy 15, you're excited by it. I remember when it came out on console, people said to me, it takes 20 hours and it really gets going. And I'm like, 20 hours is my maximum gaming time. That's when was it Hironobu Sakaguchi and is it Hironobu Sakaguchi or Nobuo Uematsu? When it moved from the original Final Fantasy team to the new one, and I know Final Fantasy 13 is linear, more linear than it should be. I still haven't got past the first few hours because I haven't had time. But when you only have a couple of hours a week on a good week, and and if you just happen to have a super week where you can fit in 5 to 10, for me, Final Fantasy 15, it's going to be that's going to be my number one. Yeah. But speaking of games that we used to play, I mean, I wanted to dedicate a little time to this podcast for anybody who wants to listen to us reminisce about how we used to play games. I mean, countless hours on Perfect Dark. I mean, us two versus. I mean, if you know Perfect Dark on the N64, the hardest bots were. Dark Sims. Not. I was thinking Meat Sims for a second. No, they were the easy ones. Dark Sims. It was we used to play 2 versus 2, first to 10 kills. Were you there when we were in the temple level and then the Slayer rocket comes around the corner and we realised that we were sitting there prepared to kill the Dark Sim to come around the corner? We're like camping. I don't know if it was you. Camping. Yeah. Hey, the Dark Sim will come around the corner in a minute. We'll get ready, and then we saw this smoke appear. What's Slayer rocket, by the way, is a rocket which you can control. And so I sat there and I said, and then we realised that we put Slayer rockets on, and the Dark Sims didn't fall for our trap, and they just fired a Slayer rocket at us. And
it amazes me, a lot of talk at least in the hardware industry these days, is about AI and artificial intelligence, how we can apply that to things like automotive and how computation intensive it is. I mean, that's neural network training. These are AI. This is AI for games, which is a bit simpler. But back, it can essentially have a response time of a frame less than you come against the hardest thing that you could ever possibly come with the hardware of an N64. So if you eventually create an AI that knows everything about its surroundings. Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't want to go, intense Black Mirror on stuff. But so we played so much Perfect Dark back in the day, so much Mario Kart.
I used to win these games. I used to.
Yeah. You always seem to remember the bits where you win and not when you lose.
No, I lost loads of times.
You remember the glory days.
But this is how I got into games writing. There used to be this forum. It used to be a retailer called Special Reserve, and they had a forum called GameADay. And in those GameADays, where you could actually win up to free. One time it still exists, by the way. Freeola run it. If you're listening, go on freeola.com and GameADay, Google that. And basically, what it is, it's now you used to write a review, if you write a cheat, or you could write just an article about video games.
Or a forum post.
Yeah, a forum post. That's what it was. And they would pick the best one, or I think they picked it probably at random every single day, and I won 50. I'm still in the top 10 to this day. And I won 50 games like Perfect Dark, Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
But back when you're sort of 13, 14, 15, 16, a free game is, that's 30, 40 pounds, 50 bucks.
Meant the world to me, the amount of games I've got. I've still got more up there, look.
And I can see all your freebies still in the wrappers. So what happens in this industry?
Yeah.
But no, because I remember winning one.
Yeah, did you? It was Brandy with you.
It was, because I remember, you say you won 50. My one was, I did a diatribe on RPGs and JRPGs, what makes them different and why JRPGs are better. which would come off as an unshoveled rant today. Yeah. But I'm, it's kind of weird because that was one of my first forays into writing about gaming and technology and concepts, at an age of 14, 15. Mm-hmm. Now I know you've always wanted to be in the gaming industry.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
But back then the gaming industry was, this holy pedestal. You had to earn your right to be in it. I was being told, and I'm always told this, and I always think it puts people in a bad frame of mind. It's really hard to be a games journalist, or it's really hard to be a journalist. But it's not. And there are lots of stories of people that put all the effort in and they never get anywhere. But generally speaking, if you're pretty good and you work hard, then there's a good chance you'll get in. It's kind of like a lot of jobs. If you put the time in,
if you give it a go, you never know. I used to write these posts on these GameADay forums, and I used to go take them to my lecturer at university, and I was showing them to him. My lecturer loved them. It was actually my writing fellow who'd helped me with my writing. He loved them. He said, "You've got to go into games writing." And I went, I told myself I was going into teaching. Of course, I wanted to be a games writer, but because people kept telling me. The barrier to entry is too high. I immediately went, I don't want to put the effort in. So I went the easy route. And it was only when people said to me, give it a go. And okay, there was a bit of I went for a job and pay was too low because the pay is slow.
It's not something you go into for the money.
Yeah, and then I went into, and I went to games testing, and that's where I discovered MCV, and I applied for a job on MCV. And I applied to MCV having done, writers write. And I had written loads of stuff, and they have interviews. I've done so many interviews of people come in, and I ask the question, junior writers. I know it's a highlight juniors. Yeah. And I say, when was the last time you did any writing? Well, I finished university 6 months ago. So I finished 6 months ago. Well, you're not a writer, are you? Why would I hire you? And I'm not saying you should write for free. I'm not saying you should write for a newspaper for free or anything. You should be paid for your work, but you can write for yourself. You write for your own blog. You can just write just for fun. If you don't...
by the time you went to work for MCV, you already had essentially 10 years writing experience under your belt.
Do you remember we went to see Shigeru Miyamoto? Yeah, and
this was one of the other things I wanted to...
So in 2003, I love this story. Ian and I, we decided to go to... I decided I wanted to meet Miyamoto. He was signing games.
So just to clarify for people who don't know who Shigeru Miyamoto is.
Oh, he's the legendary games creator behind Donkey Kong, Mario, Zelda... Pikmin, pretty much every major Nintendo game you can think of.
If you are a Nintendo fan, this is the guy who sits on your shrine.
Yeah, he's the Spielberg of video games, and he
very rarely does public appearances.
He's never done one since. Right, he does them at E3 and does those interviews and stuff, but he very rarely does anything like this. He's a shy man
and meet the public.
Yeah. So we went to queue up for him. And do you remember this? Well, we were going to spend the day on Oxford Street, weren't we? We were going to go to McDonald's, we were going to do some shopping, and we went to, we went there. And
we arrived 4 hours early.
Yeah. And I went to the security guard and I said, where is, or maybe you did, and where is Miyamoto doing the signing? And he just pointed downstairs and it was absolutely rammed. Famously, Nintendo hired people to be in the queue because they were worried no one would turn up.
Oh gosh.
So they ended up having to shut the queue after 2 hours to go. He stayed an hour later. He originally said...
He arrived an hour later as well, if I remember.
I think he might, I don't know. But he had this thing where you could sign as many games as you know. It's like, that was changed, and you ended up signing.
So I remember you wanted to go because you're idle because you're a massive Nintendo fan at the time, still are. So and I for me this was just hey, let's go to meet a legend. It wasn't. I wasn't necessarily caught up in all the hype. Or I guess at the time I didn't necessarily understand, just how rare of an event it was. And this was back when I dressed badly and had spiky hair.
Changed.
I dress better now. And so we got down. I think I'd been down to London like once or twice. Now London for us, is about an hour away.
Yeah.
On the train. And cheap enough because it was at a weekend. So we go down, we go to Oxford Street. Now, is the big Virgin Megastore still there?
No, all that's gone.
So
even the HMV's gone.
Yeah, it was. So this is massive department store that is designed to hold thousands of people on the main shop floor, and they had the bottom floor all segregated for this meet and greet. So 4 hours early. So we went up to the front door and we saw we expected a line down the street. The same way you might see people queuing for an Apple launch. Back then, before Apple was selling iPhones. And we expected to see people around the street. We expected to be in the cold. We expected hundreds of people. But we got downstairs and we were we were about 600th in line.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite 1,000. But they cancelled the line very, a little while after we arrived because, you couldn't even get into the downstairs area because people had started queuing on the stairs.
Yeah.
And security risk and all that. So we sat there. I think we didn't even go to the toilet just in case. And this was a time before, smartphones.
Yeah.
So we were just talking, I guess.
Thankfully, if you remember, we were standing in a magazine rack.
Yeah. So magazines that you should have bought. But we sat there reading, and then he doesn't come out at the time that it was said, and
he did stay late. He stayed a lot later.
He stayed late, but I remember us being one of the last. So people were still in the queue, but we didn't get a chance to see him because he had to go. Yeah,
we knew we would have been the last, but he stayed like an extra hour. Okay. I do remember my favourite part of this story is that I had the gold edition Zelda, Legend of Zelda issue, the very and.
Well, let's go back to he was. The idea was that they weren't expecting many people, so you could sign how much they liked.
You could sign as many games, bring as many games you like.
And after they closed the queue, they basically said, even though we've pre-announced that you can sign, we're going to limit it to one per person. Now, I didn't bring anything to sign because I was at the time I had a PlayStation. I think I had a Game Boy.
Dreamcast, didn't you? Yeah, Dreamcast. Yeah.
Was it Dream?
Yeah.
Because I bought the Dreamcast just as it finished production.
Yeah, so did I. And it was because it was before the GameCube. I was bored waiting for it.
No, because in the end, because you had a stack of stuff to sign, you were going to give me some of it to sign. And in the end, I got your Super Mario Sunshine.
Well, I gave you the rest of the games. That's the mistake I made.
Yeah. Which one? So you had a gold edition
Zelda, Legend of Zelda, and a gold edition of the second Zelda.
Yeah. And so you went up first. There was also, we tried to get a competition to try and get a photo of a magazine, which and that failed because the magazine wasn't rigid. So you went up first. You said hi. You got your thing signed. You took a picture?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, on the way. Well, we walked past, didn't we, on the way up?
Yeah. So
Enuma was there, by the way. So this guy now, who's now seen as a legend behind Zelda, was the guy sitting next to Miyamoto. It was a Wind Waker promotional tour, and Enuma was the director of Wind Waker, and they brought him along. Enuma is the guy who made Breath of the Wild. Like he's the man in charge of Zelda now.
Yeah, but he's second best.
Back then, we didn't care.
No. So you went up, you got yours signed. I went up, I got Super Mario Sunshine signed, but everyone got Super Mario Sunshine signed. So you were annoyed because I didn't.
I couldn't be too annoyed. You queued up for 4 hours for me and got a game signed. That was a reasonable.
And Miyamoto has a signature where Moto, the T is like a nose, and you're going to pull it out from your cupboard now, aren't you? And the O's are eyes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a picture of it and put it up online. Though, do you remember the very specific bet I challenged myself to do, and you said you're never going to do it?
We discussed the prospect of asking Mr. Miyamoto if he was a fan of cheese.
So at that age, 13. So it's 2003. I was
young.
I was 17, going on 18. So I'm a bit random. So I thought, cheese is funny. So I'm going to ask him if he likes cheese.
And I remember vividly you telling me how he responded. And he went, cheese?
Cheese?
Yes, I like cheese.
Yes. Because he hardly speaks any English.
No.
So I had to be very simple. And I think I took a picture of him, time before a smartphone, so I had a point and shoot, and I accidentally had the flash on, and I remember taking a picture of him, and he
looked startled.
Yeah. Oh no, this guy's just asked me if I liked cheese, and now he's taking a photo of me. When you say he's a very shy guy, I used to be that shy as well. If somebody did that to me,
yeah, no, he's a lovely man. Yeah, that was a very iconic. That was very memorable. Yeah, it was a very memorable moment that day. I don't remember meeting Miyamoto. All my memories about it is you and I in the build-up to it, and I actually don't remember even getting it signed. I don't remember meeting him. I've seen him since. I've spoken to him about Pikmin 3, but I've not
in an official capacity.
In an official capacity, but. Back then, there's lovely stories about Miyamoto. The guy who made Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, the biggest surprise of the year, by the way, incredible game, is a guy called David Soliani. He works for Ubisoft Italy, and he loves Miyamoto. He's a hero, like me, but on another level. He actually
is that possible?
When Miyamoto did the same press tour in Italy, he who was really ill, David Soliani. He found out all the hotels he could possibly be in, ran around all the hotels, found out what hotel he was at, camped outside with the flu for 5 hours outside his hotel to meet him, got a picture of him and everything. David Soliani now spent the last 2-3 years working with him on a Mario game. And there was this moment, and you can see it if you watch E3, Ubisoft press conference when they announced Mario plus Rabbids. Miyamoto announces it. The only thing he did during E3, he went on stage during Ubisoft press conference to announce Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and he asked David Soliani to stand up. David Soliani was he's in floods of tears, absolutely floods of tears, and it became a bit of a meme. He became a bit of an icon that moment of that show. And but oddly, when I've met David Soliani and I interviewed him, and I said to him, I had a 2003 Wind Waker press tour moment. It's amazing that he had one too, and it's. But yeah, no, those were the.
Well, we're getting to an age now where the people who are the movers and shakers in this industry are our age.
Yeah.
So they've grown up,
making us feel inadequate.
Yeah. In another 10, 15 years, everybody will be younger.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Well, I think we should. I want to leave it there.
That's all right. Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Let's
say you've been a long-time friend, and it's great to hear your thoughts on something that's a little bit different for our listeners, and I hope you've enjoyed it. This is where I have to say, if you've got any comments, please leave them down below. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy it, and again, thank you, Chris.